Good morning. Uh, My name is Michael Wimberly, and I want to welcome you to our Wednesday webinar, Automating Processes Using Windchill Workflows. So for this webinar, we'll go through and review, of course, um, go through some introductions of myself as well as PDSVISION, just kind of briefly talk about webinars, some of the associated objects, and then jump right into a demo. So most of this, of course, will be a demo of the information that we want to see. And then, of course, there's a Q&A. Through the process, if you do have any questions, feel free to post your questions in the chat area where I can see them. And more than likely, I will probably address those towards the end, but if it's something in the process as I'm looking at, I may be able to address it as we're going. But most of the time, I'll answer all the questions at the end of the webinar. That way, I can get through everything and then answer your questions. All right. So once again, my name is Michael Wimberly. I'm a technical director of customer success here at PDSVISION. I've been with the company now, saying over 11 years, but actually, I think I'm into 13 now, so I need to update that. I've been working with PTC products for over 20 years. 25 years, I should say, sorry. And I've been in the PTC channel for over 20 years, certified trainer, as well as implementer of Creo, as well as Windchill. PDSVISION as overall, once again, we're headquartered in Stockholm, and we have operations in actually now about 14 countries. We are a trusted advisor of software solutions and services in the digital transformation with over 2,500 years, of course, combined with technical experience within our specific domain. We are one of PTC's top partners, platinum status worldwide, and we of course rapidly growing partner of Ansys as well. And to enhance your usage of PTC products with a focus on Windchill, we do have some of the My PDS apps that will actually are beneficial that basically lay on top of Windchill that can enhance the usage of those. One of those being My PDS Search is a huge one. We've done a webinar on that, actually several webinars on that. So it's actually focused around those that don't use Windchill on a regular basis like a designer would, but somebody that still needs to gather information out, somebody maybe from purchasing or marketing and needed to find something. So um, now, digital transformation. A lot of companies now are moving from PDM into PLM. And in doing that, there's a lot of things that are kind of changing. And that's what we're looking at here. So the digital transformation, some of the challenges that we see is, of course, with some of the products, one of the things we want to do with our products and make products smart. We want to go through and connect them to basically the internet using Internet of Things. We want to fulfill regulations, and of course, we want to build a digital twin. Digital twin is very important because basically you're building your entire machine and its operations inside of Creo Windchill that basically mimics what it's going to do in the field. That way, when you use some of the analysis tools, when you use some of the predictive tools, you can go in and see what things are going to fail, when they're going to fail, be able to predict some of those things moving forward. Instead of letting them happen and then being reactive, it allows us to be proactive. Production, one of the things we want to do, of course, is reduce manufacturing downtime. That kind of goes what we were just talking about a moment ago, being able to predict cycles. This thing is going to run for 1,000 cycles. So we know that once it gets to 900, we need to start figuring out when we're going to go through and make any type of adjustments. Like I said, predict failures. With the aging workforce, that's the one thing that's beneficial. A lot of our experienced people are now retiring, but we want to capture their knowledge. A lot of that we're able to do through some of the products. So some of the processes that were being done manually, we're now able to go in and still capture that, but capture it more in a digital type way. And then, of course, optimize the production through AI. That's a big move now, is going and using AI for quite a few things. One of the things, even with that, is assembling and disassembling, learning how to actually put things together and take things apart, how to repair things. There's a lot of AI that is involved in that that can help, even novice people know how to work on different machines. Process is important. Remove digital data silos. So instead of this data just being in engineering, or this data just being in manufacturing, this data being in analysis, and then marketing has something, instead of it being in individual silos and everybody having their own, we're looking at one database. So that's the move from PDM to PLM, is now having everybody access the same information real time. So once again, removing those silos, having smart connected systems. So now connecting your PLM systems, your PDM system. Once again, Windchill is all of that. So instead of having multiple systems doing what Windchill can do, bring it all into Windchill and allow that to govern it. Because once again, in the removing of the data silos, we're still looking at a single set of data that all these different applications are now looking at real time. Smart connected operations, and then of course service and operation areas as well, where we're going into the shop area or we're going into the field service area, and now they're having things that they need to look at. Once again, having that digital access or even report information back into Windchill through problem reports or change requests and things like that. They can go in and still submit that inside of there. The infrastructure, reduce non-valued IT costs. A lot of people are moving from, actual physical servers into cloud operations. So that's one of the big moves, as well as instead of actually you having the physical software installed, we're using software as a service. So there's a lot of things that are moving, once again, cloud-based, virtual-based, instead of actually having the physical pieces of hardware. And then of course your data, big data, create create value out of the data. Once again, your AI, your data lakes and analysis, data and cybersecurity. One of the big things that people are uh, very cautious of is protecting their IP, making sure that the right people have the right access to it, and those that don't need to see it don't see it. Once again, that's where Windchill is very beneficial, is because it allows you to go through and set up those type of security things, not only just within the products and libraries, but even within them individually. You can go through and set up certain securities on different folders underneath there if necessary. And then, of course, create new business models. All this stuff, when we look at products, production processes, infrastructure, and even the data, all that, because we're moving in a different direction, it does give us a new business model as to how to do things. So that's one of the areas that, once again, is very beneficial for us, is we're looking to do things differently, streamline things, but still make things, very accessible to those who need it. So what we're actually, out of all these areas, when we're getting into the Windchill and we're looking at the workflow, one of the main areas that we're going to be focusing on is basically the processes. How do we go through and capture all that information? So just real briefly, what is a workflow? A workflow base is a series of steps used to assist in the transition of files through their process from conception to production, even into obsolescence. So we're looking at the entire development process of it. So we're not just looking at, here's an individual part and we're going to design it and then we're just going to throw it over the wall. We're going to actually go in and create processes that allow us to say, okay, when we're creating it, now we need to make sure that this next set of people get notified that we're done with this, and now they can do what they need to do. So we're going to do all that through different types of, or we can do, I should say, all that through different types of workflows. How do we do it? We do it through promotions, change requests, and even at the initial object creation. So when we're going in and creating them, yeah, we can promote things from state to state, which is kind of correspond what we're looking at here. From each one of these can be different life cycle states that helps us understand where the process is in its, I'm sorry, where the product is in its development process, um, or something similar to it. And as we're going from one state to the next state, we can go through and specify the different levels of promotions. So we want to go in and promote from, our conceptual design to our prototype. What approval process needs to happen there? And that's the benefit, that each one of those states can have a different approval process if necessary. And then of course, when we go into change processes, whether we're talking, the problem report that somebody in field service may go through and submit, that runs through a process, because once it's submitted, there's a workflow that says, okay, send this information to this person or this group of people. Same thing with problem reports, change requests, change notices, all those things in the background work with workflows. So to get from one stage to the next stage, there's a workflow in the background that is telling it, send it to here. When this thing is completed, when we say, okay, yep, we need to rework it, there's a workflow that tells it where to go. Or if it's approved, there's a workflow that says, okay, now move this to the next area. And we can even do it when we initially create a part or an object. So when we go in and start something, we can kick off a workflow immediately, and we can actually have that workflow actually run that product from beginning to the end. So instead of doing a promotion from state to state to state, we can actually have a workflow that actually sends out tasks. Okay, this is complete. There's the immediately next task, and then once that's complete, there's another task that it does. So we can actually have a workflow that actually runs through each one of those states within that single workflow instead of having different workflows at each one. So, and with that, once again, workflows can be very simple, where it's just going in and saying, hey, just review this information, or we can make them a little bit more complex. So we can go in and have workflows within workflows. So there's a lot of things that we can go in and do within our workflows to go through and make sure that we capture the information that we need to. Now, with that, there's also different areas that are going to be touched. So a workflow is no good if we're not using it. So with the workflows, we want to make sure that that workflow is assigned to the appropriate lifecycle state or assigned for promotions. It's assigned to a particular object type or referenced by a particular object type, whatever it may be, pulled in an object initialization rule. So all those different things are available. So if we use if a workflow in a lifecycle state, in a that lifecycle can then be assigned through an object initialization rule. So there's a lot of different pieces of this that we can go through and look at, and we'll actually look at that inside of the demonstration. All right, so here we are inside of Windchill, just our standard environment. And then once again, to go into our actual workflows, um, we just need to go into the different levels. So that's the one thing that is beneficial when we're dealing with setting up all this information. We can set up a workflow, a life cycle at different levels. So we have, of course, if you're a site administrator, you can go through and, of course, set them at the site level, which means when you set it there, if you have multiple organizations with inside of your environment, each organization has access to that specific workflow. So when it's up, it can trickle down. Or if you're in a single organization or you want to make it available to the organization, I go and make it at the org level. And then at the org level, I can make it specific to all the products and libraries underneath that organization. And then if we want to be even more specific, I can go through and say, okay, within this product or library, I want to go through and create this item. So it is specific to just this product or specific to just this library. Now, my recommendation is I would go through and at least make it at the organization level, because if you do make it at the product level, if you need it somewhere else, you will have to move it up a level. And that's basically you have to import it, export it, and import it at that level. So if you already make it at the org level, it's available. You don't have to use it for all of them or any of them, but it just makes it available. So we're going to look at things at the organization level. So I'll go into the utilities, and inside of utilities, we have the workflow template administrator. So inside of here, we'll show you your workflows. Now the context is basically where is it made at? That workflow exists at. All these are out of the box. So these are at the site level. We can see here's one that is actually at the PDSVISION level. So that's the organization level that we've gone through and made that one. But all these other ones are at the site level. Now, I also would recommend that if there is a site level workflow that you want to go through and alter, my recommendation is not to alter it there, but to create a copy of it and alter it at your organization level, because it makes it easier when you're going in and trying to track what you've done. If you modify one at the site level, then it's hard to know what you've actually changed. But if you make a copy of it and it's at your organization level, now you know that I've created this workflow specifically for our organization versus modifying the out of the box ones. So that's just my recommendation. You can do with that what you please, but once again, it's more for being able to know what modifications you've made to the system versus the out of the box ones. So if we're looking at any of these, so some of the ones that we can see very commonly, there's one for change notices. If you've done any type of change process, here are the workflows for all of those. So here's a change notice workflow. If we look at it, I'm just going to view it. We can go in and see the processes. going to go in and submit it, submit the change notice. Once again, it's submitted. You can go through and see each of the conditions. If depending on the direction that you're going in, if you're familiar with doing that change notice, are you doing basically a simple process, or are you doing a more advanced where you need to do a change implementation board? Do I need to go in and do that? So depending upon what you've gone through and specified will determine, of course, the path of that workflow. Do I need to have an implementation board, or do I need to go in and or I can just go in and implement it going forward? Another one that we've seen quite often is, of course, our promotion. So you have the two here. There's a promotion approval process and there's a promotion review process. If we go in and we look at the promotion approval process, we can see once again, we're going in and committing it. And then based on it validates everything. And there's the actual process to go in and now approve that. So if you've been a part of the promotion process and you get that task, that's where that's coming from. Inside of here, and it tells it whose it goes through, which is once again the approver inside of our team. And we'll look at all that in just a moment. But you can see from here, there's your voting. Do we approve that promotion? Do we reject it, or do we rework it? And if we rework it, you can see it unlocks the files. It goes in and now submits back to the submitter or the originator to go in and now fix them. They resubmit them, and it goes through that loop until it's been approved or completely rejected. So that's also there. So that's where these also come in. So these are the out of the box ones. And you can even see down here, this is the review process. So although we're selecting promotion approver, part of that is still having the reviewer available as well. So, all right. And then there is the reviewer all by itself. So pretty simple. Like I said, all these are out of the box that you will go through and look at. So from these, let's just say we did want to see where these are actually used. So inside of here, you also have, and I'm still at the organization level, inside of my utilities, I can also go through and show you where for the approval, we can also go through and look and see in the promotion process, down here is where we go through and specify what workflow to use for promotion approvals. So once again, if I go in and set preference, we can come in here and see that these are all the workflows that are listed. And as we go down, we can see that the two that are selected are promotion request approval process and review process. And the one that it selects by default is this one here, which is the promotion request approval. So when we go into our models, and I'm just going to show you really quickly, just pick a file inside of here. And I'll come in here and say new promotion request, default, go through and say, okay, set that to released. When I select here, there are those two options. So there is your promotion request approval process, and the other one is the promotion review. So once again, by default, it's using the approval process. If we wanted to be the promotion review process, then we would change that preference. And then we can also see that, remember, what it's using by default is the approvers. So it's using promotion approvers as the default selections. So in order for this to move properly, we want to go through and make sure we have people in those roles within the teams. All right, so I'm going to go back into my organization level and then go back into the workflows. So for this workflow, what I'm actually going to go in and do is I'm going to take the promotion approval process and I want to actually create a copy of this. So I'm going to do a save as, and I want to go in and still going to be a promotion approval, but I'm going to say 2 steps. So now it goes in and creates that copy. And you can see once again, because I created a copy, it now shows up at the organization level. So I'm going to come in here and edit this. And what I'm simply going to do is, instead of it just going through a single approval, I'm going to actually add a second step for it to approve. So I'm going to take these files here. I'm just using these items. I'm going to take this part of the workflow, all of these. I'm going to move these out some. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to base my next step off of this one. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it. And then I'm going to take this, and instead of going from there to the completion portion, I'm going to take it and put it here. And then I'm just going to go in and update these. So that now goes to there. And then just like this, it's still going to have the same voting. So this one, because I copied it, it's still going to have a reject, and it's still going to have a rework. And of course, it's going to have the approve. So I'm going to go ahead and add my arrows to these same items. So that way, what's going to happen, now I could have had it as its own loop, but if it's decided that this needs to be reworked, the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to have it rework, they change it, and then it goes back through the two-step approval again. If I didn't want that, then I could go in and create this same loop right here. So it didn't go back through both of them, it would just go back through this one. But for this process, I'm going to have it go back through and get approved by both sets of individuals again. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to make this the approve, and it's going to kick off and go here. I'm going to take this one, and this is also going to be the approve, and it's going to go there. This one is the rejection. And let me move this down a little bit. And this one is going to be the rework. So once again, we took this same loop and just moved it over here. Now, the other thing that we want to change is I'll go in here and we have the participant. Who does this go to? Well, this right now goes to anybody that is in the promotion approver role. Well, that's not what we want. We want this to go to a specific individual. So of course, because I'm here, it makes it easy. Kind of makes it easy. And it goes in and finds me, and I want this to come directly to me. So it doesn't matter what the other one does. After that first person approves it, it's now going to come to me, or the first group of people. Oh, and also I'm going to change this, and I'm going to say this is management promotion approval, because of course I want to be a manager. There we go. All right, so that's where that's going to go. So the first one is going to go to whomever's in the promotion approval role, and then the second one is going to come to me directly. Great. So now I'll go ahead and save that. And then what I can do is make sure that what I have actually works. And I can do a validation. And it goes then, it tells me the validation is just showing all these different items. Some of those are the properties, but there's nothing in here that is erroring out. So we're actually good. And then once again, I'll just do another save and then exit. All right. So now at this point that has been changed. I'm now going to go ahead and check that in. And I'm going to say added new approval step. Great. Now, once again, that's great sitting right there. But if I want to use this, now I go back into my preferences. So I'm going to go back into the preferences, but I only want this to affect this product. That's it. I don't want it to affect any other product. So in doing that, I'm now going to go from the organization level down into the actual product level. So these products here will still just use the same two. Well, for this product, I need that second level of approval. So I'm going to go into its utilities under preference management. And then once again, go down to the promotion process in it. And now edit this. And once again, we'll see that those two are still selected. And here's my other one. So I'm going to select that one. And actually, for this, we don't ever want to do the review process. So I'm going to just remove that one from being available. So I'm only going to have either the single step approval process or the two-step approval process. That's it. There won't be a review process available. Now, once again, I'm going to still leave the default as promotion approval. So I'll select that. Great. And once again, that is just within this product. So now when I come through, oh, let's do one other thing real quick. I do want to double check in this team and make sure that when we look at the promotion approver, that somebody's in there. If nobody is in there, then it's going to go to, there's an option, and I forgot to show you, I'll show you in just a little bit. There's an option in there for responsible role. What that simply means is if there's nobody in the role, the participant role that is assigned, it now goes to that particular person. So if nobody's in here, I forgot who it was for this one, but they'll get notification. If whoever is in that role isn't there, it then goes to administrator. So I'm going to go ahead and, of course, because I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and add me to that role. All right, now I'm going to go into the product itself. And I'm going to simply take this file here, and I'm going to my new promotion request. Once again, you can name it whatever you want to. I'm going to take this file here. I'm going to tell it to go there, make sure it's promoted. Now what you will see is up here, there are my two workflows. Like I said, the default one, I left it alone. That is our original promotion process. If I want to go through this one, same thing. Now the roles are still the same. All the roles, because I didn't change any of that. So in that workflow, it requires approver. It still requires reviewer because there's a step in there that actually still goes to the reviewer. That was that bottom leg of it. And then there's also a piece of it for procurement engineer, which is at the end, and that's actually creating the actual documents. So as you can see for the approver, you can see that I'm highlighted for all of this. And part of that is simply because I am in this role. So it selects me no matter where I'm at. Awesome. Go ahead and finish. All right, so that promotion request has now been submitted. I'm going to go to my home page, and in my tasks, give it a second. Where is, I'm going to search for approve, because there's a whole bunch. Approval, sorry. Okay, not sure why it's not showing up, but I'm going to go to the tasks directly underneath that product. And that should be it. Yep. So now at this point, it's going in and it's looking, oh, wait a minute. Nope, I apologize, that's the wrong one. That's the one, sorry. Yep. So this is the one that's going in, and you can see once again the promotion request it's submitted. This is now going to the approver, which is me, and it's waiting for me to actually go through and approve this. So I now down here is the voting. Remember when we looked at that task, we had those three directions. We can approve it and move forward. We can reject it and it ends it, or we can rework it and it goes in that loop until we go through and complete it. So I'm going to go ahead and say approved, and then once again complete that task. Now, once I complete this task, once again, it is going to the approval role. It's now going to go through and now send off the second notification, which is there you is, the management promotion approval. So now that comes to me because that is specifically assigned to me. And as you can see in here, I can see what was done for the first one. It was approved. I just put a note in there that it was approved. Whatever note I put in there would show up in the comment section, but now it's waiting for me to go through and now approve this as well. There's the same process, approve, reject, or rework. So I can go through and do any of those things. If I needed to review the objects, of course, they're listed here as well. So all those things are available. And once again, I will go in and say approved to move forward with, just to add something else. And now that's done. So there's that promotion request. And as you can see, very simply, I went and now added an additional step in that workflow. So this is going in and creating or editing something that's kind of there and for us to function with. But we also have the ability to create our own workflows inside of our organization. Now, we actually have one there that is created for us, and I'm going to go through and just show you it. It's a very simple one. It's one that is called Demo Document Workflow. So if I go in and select this, just view it, I don't even have to edit it. Very simple. This is one that's actually going to go through the process of basically from the creation of the document to the actual releasing of the document. So all of this is done within this workflow, which is once again, the first task of it is to go in and submit a document. So as soon as I go in and create this document, this workflow kicks off. Once this workflow kicks off, now I can go through and do what is necessary for it to finish the process. So here's a task, and then here's the task. So very simply, so this is a workflow that we're creating for a document type called demo doc. Now, all the pieces that go with this all have to be put together. One of the first things that we need to do is go in and, of course, create that document type. Now, creating document types have to be done either at the org level or above. You cannot create a document inside of a product or a library as far as an object type. So if I go into utilities, we have type and attribute administration. We can now go through and select on that. And inside of here, we look underneath documents. And underneath document, there you will see demo doc. So created this document type. Now this is where we would now go through and add any attributes that we want to see. So if it's for a particular product line, we can go through and have product line as an attribute. If we want to go through and give it the assembly reference number, we can do that. So we can go through who created it, all those different things. Some of these things are in here, but if you wanted any type of special attributes, this is where we would now go through and do that for this specific document type. So we have our document called demo document. Great. Now from here, we also want to go through and specify to use a specific life cycle. So we have a life cycle that we also have called demo doc. Now for this one, once again, I will go through and view it. So this life cycle is an advanced life cycle, not advanced as in the number of steps, but advanced as to what we can do with it. If we create a basic life cycle, then it's using only the out of the box information. Because we're using an advanced one, I can go in here and now I have these tabs available for me. The important tab for that is when this thing is kicked off, when a file is created, the demo doc is created and it hits in work, is going to use that workflow that we had just defined. And that workflow, as soon as it hits in work, now goes out and sends a task that says submit the document. And then it'll go through the rest of that. So once we submit the document, it goes to the next task, which is basically approving the document. And then it finishes. So instead of having it at each one of these, which is what other workflows do. So even if we look at some of the, I'm sorry, not like workflows, but life cycles. If we even look at some of these other life cycles, And I'm just going to pick one here. We have the different states. So for each one of these, we can go through and specify a different life cycle if we need to. So the phase process and the gate process. The phase is when it hits the phase, this is what it kicks off. If it hits the gate, when it's trying to go from this to this is the process. So we can go through and actually set these up as well. So if we wanted to go in and really manipulate this and say, when it goes from this state to that state, we need this workflow to be executed. When it goes from this state to this state, we need this other workflow. So like the ones we were just using, when we're going from open to under review, we can just use the basic approval process, one approver. If we're going from under review to approved, now we want to go through and make sure that one uses the two-step process. So we can go through and assign that here automatically. So once they're actually executed, these are the specific workflows that will be used. So that can be assigned inside of the workflow, but once again, inside of the life cycle. But once again, in order for that to work, that life cycle has to be an advanced life cycle. Only advanced life cycles will allow you to go through and assign workflows and even roles. I didn't go into the roles, but even roles for that specific life cycle. So we have the actual life cycle. Then what we need to do is make sure that when we go through and have that file, we want to go through and make sure that for that file, we've defined what it's going to use. So there's our demo doc, and I'm going to go ahead and download this so we can look at it. So when I open it up in WordPad, there we can see for this is very simple. It's going to use everything else from our WT Talk area, but for the demo doc, we actually have created a demo doc team, and we've gone through and said for the lifecycle, use that demo doc lifecycle. So that demo doc lifecycle now references the demo doc workflow. Now, how does that work? The way that works is when I now come back into my product and I go ahead and create a new document. The type of document that I'm going to create is my demo doc. Now for this one, because I don't have a file yet, I'm going to go ahead and just say no content. But I'm going in and saying I need the specific document, and this may be 123 SOW. So it could be a statement of work that we're going to go through and define. We just haven't defined it yet. But we want to go through and put this placeholder in place that says this document needs to be defined. Next. If we had any attachments or reference, we can go in and do that, but I'll go ahead and say finish. Now, once again, for this has now been submitted. And if I go to my home page, there it is. So there's a task. This, once again, it will go in and actually show in my task. There's over 2,000 things listed in my tasks for other reasons. But if I go in and I actually open this, I can see that this has been assigned to me. So I initiated it and it's been assigned to me. What is it that I need to do? I need to go in and create this document. So this shows up in a task. It also will show up as an email. So I get an email that also tells me to go through and define this. So the subject matter is my demo doc. When I go in and select that, it takes me right to that document. What do? I go in and I edit it. So I'm going to go ahead and check it out. And I'm going to go ahead and edit it. And with that edit, I want to now go in and define the content for it. So that content can be whatever type of document that I want. I'm going to go over and drag my document, and there it is. Drag it in. Here's my document. I'll go ahead and once again, if I had a secondary attachment that I wanted to add, I can do that. I could save it. and not check it in, but I'm done at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and check this document in. Now, checking the document in does not go in and complete my task. I will still need to go in and complete that specific task of submitting a document. You can see that it is now at A.2, which means that is the version that I just created by adding that document to it. And now I have complete the task. I'll come over and refresh. And there is my approve document task. Once again, that will come to me, and I can go in and now review this document, make sure it's exactly what I want it to look like, you know, edit it, mark it up, whatever, or just simply say, yep, it looks good, and I can go in and now approve that process. Now, this was done once again just by simply going in and creating a workflow. And in that workflow, I went in and now assigned different tasks to different people. And also, and I apologize, I just realized I didn't show it. The other thing that that workflow did was it also went in and it changed the states during that process. So as it was going through and updating the information, it was also going in and setting the state of the objects as it was moving forward. I didn't mean to initiate. That was the wrong button. Sorry. I meant to just view it. So yeah, you can see right there, once I went in and said, okay, I submitted, I went in and said, okay, I submit the document. It now went in and changed the state to submitted, which is once again, that secondary state in that life cycle. And then once again, once I went ahead and approved it, it was approved, and then it set the state to approved. So as we're going through each one of those, different than just doing a promotion request, a promotion request just goes, okay, when it's complete, it now sets the state and that process is done. This one said, okay, set the state, now send another notification out. Okay, set the state, send a notification out. So you can literally, and that's what your change processes do, is that once you go through and you complete one task, it now goes through and sets the state to whatever it needs to be in implementation, and then it sends out another task. Once you complete that, it sends out another task. So that whole change process literally will go through and change the states of each of those objects, as well as go through and continue to send out notifications. So that's how all of that works. So once again, workflows are great. They're easy to go through and at least somewhat manipulate, creating them from scratch. Once you understand how workflows actually move and how the different processes are, and there's actually tutorials and um, classes available or mentoring available for that as well if you need that to go in and create some custom workflows. Um, but when you have those, then it's easy for you to capture the actual processes within your organization. So a lot of things that companies are doing manually by going and just sending out emails, or trying to remember to send out an email. Hey, I just completed this. I need to send somebody an email. Well, Windchill automates that process. Once you've gone through and checked in the file and you've completed your task, Windchill now takes over. Let Windchill now go through and send that information to who's already been designated to send it to. So that way you don't have to remember who's done it or who to send it to. It's already done for you. It's already predetermined. And if they don't need it, then they have the ability to reassign that task to someone else. But yeah, so like I said, workflows can be as simple as you want them to be, or they can be more complex and have a lot more information inside of them as far as how the loop goes. So I always look at this and we call it the spider web. So depending on how the processes are looping, will determine what information goes. So if you understand workflows, then you can follow this along and kind of understand what's going on. If not, then yeah, it just looks like a whole bunch of mess. But it's important information. So, all right. So at this point, I will go to questions. First question is, how do you update or change instructions for the task? Oh, that is actually inside of the workflow itself. So if I came back into, I'm going to go back down to my copy of the promotion request. If I edit that, and if I come into this particular task, you know, there's the activity. So under activity is where the instructions are as to what they're supposed to do. So you can then update that information, and then they can go back and now, once again, based on what you're telling them to do. And then another one says, I remember seeing an iteration history of the workflow templates. Is that possible? Yes. Leave that. And it actually is just going in and selecting on it. And there is iteration history here. And it goes through and shows it. So that's also where I always recommend adding comments, because you can see that going from this iteration to this iteration, I'm telling you what I did. I added an approval step. So now when you look at that workflow, you kind of know what to look for. But if you just see a bunch of numbers of the iteration history, you don't know what's changed from one to the other. So I always recommend going in and looking at or adding comments when you're going in and checking in, and not just workflows, but anything that you're checking in. Add comments so that when people are looking at it, they can go in and easily understand what's changed from one step to the next step, or from one iteration to the other iteration. All right. Are there any additional questions? So like I said, the one thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with workflows, if you're doing promotions, that's just a matter of going in and updating the promotion process preference. And once again, specifying the appropriate level to make that change. That is a preference that can be done at the site level, the org level, or even at the product or library level. So if you're only affecting an individual product, do it at this level. If you want it to be something that is available across the board and affects all of your products, then do it at the organization level. But remember, if you're going in and creating, like I did we did for the demo doc, that demo doc was a new object type, which had its own workflow, which had its own life cycle. All of that was incorporated into that. That was done at the organization level, which made it available at any product. So if I want to still go in and create that demo doc, I can do that in any product or library that is underneath that organization. So I have that functionality there. But remember, all those pieces go together. You have the document, you have the life cycle, you have the workflow, and you have the object initialization rule. The object initialization rule is one of the most important parts, other than tying the workflow to the life cycle, because the object initialization rule says use this life cycle, which has this workflow. So, and then also, I think one of the things I meant that I told you I was going to show you really quickly, and then we will complete. If I go back into here, and I can edit because I'm already in it. So inside of here, I do, once again, the participant is here. If you look at the general, I remember I told you the responsible role. So the responsible role is, of course, the approver. So if who we've gone through and specified as the participant is not there, it's going to go to this person. So this happens to be the same. And if it needs to be somebody different, it can be. But if there's nobody there, then it'll go to the admin. And the admin would now go in and have to reassign it to whomever is necessary. So if nobody's in those roles, it kind of basically trickles up the ladder. So that's there. And then the other thing that I want to show you is, remember, in the promotion, all of this is done. So this is all the approval process. Now, there's also this option over here for the review process. Now, In an approval process, the review does not stop the promotion from going through. That is all done here. What that's doing is whomever needs to review it, once they review it, then that actually closes out the workflow. It doesn't stop the promotion from happening. It just stops the workflow from being completed. Once that person basically says that they're done, there's not a voting, it's just basically saying that they completed it, then it can continue here and then close out. Now for this one, it would actually stop that bomb from being released, because what this is saying is this has to be done and that has to be done before that can happen. And this is where the other individual comes in, which is the procurement engineer. So everything prior to that is either the approver or the reviewer. Once it's approved, then the procurement engineer now gets a notification to now release the bill of material. So that's how this workflow is done. That's why that other role is in there other than approver and reviewer. So keep that in mind. All right. Are there any additional questions? If not, thank you all for your time. And I hope that something that we covered today, helps you in understanding workflows and how they all work with our Windchill processes. If you do have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached at michael.wimberly@pdsvision.com, and just submit your questions there. And if you have, anything that you need, let us know. You can also reach us on our website, pdsvision.com, as well as view information on our YouTube page. And this webinar will be available to you once it is completed. You will receive a link to it just because you have actually been on this actual webinar. So once again, thank you for your time and have a great remainder of your